digital money, digital currency, digital energy in different aspects. It's digital property at low frequency. And by that, I mean, if you buy $1 million of Bitcoin with intent to hold it for a decade, it's digital property, put it in cold storage. If, on the other hand, you're moving it every 2 hours to pay for an Uber or an Airbnb or a hotel room, it starts to look like digital money. And what if I move it 1,000 times a minute? Well, at some point, the difference between Bitcoin and other forms of money is traditionally other money moved at a fairly slow rate. Like coins don't move that fast, but even credit card transactions they don't lend itself. Nobody did 10,000 credit card transactions in a day. Right. So you don't think about shining 10 million photons of credit card transactions on anybody. So we really never thought of money or currency as energy before, because it was kind of mid-frequency at the frequency of commerce. But Bitcoin isn't really limited to the frequency of commerce. So sometimes we refer to microtransactions, and we've seen with really cool apps like Sphinx Chat, you see the idea you could stream satoshis, in a continuous fashion. Mm-hmm. When you get to the point where you can go faster than the speed of a commercial transaction, now there's you got to think of it in a new way, and that's why I think high frequency Bitcoin is digital energy.
You're going to have to put some more words around that, which I know is not a problem for you.
Okay. So let's talk more. Let's dig more into it.
Yeah.
Digital energy. Well, let's talk about a concept people would get: digital music.
Okay.
How do I create digital music? I have analog music. I have a guitar. I play it. I have a piano. I'm a singer. I have a band. So how do you create digital music from analog music? You create an encoded file. How do you create an encoded file, right, in a digital music format? Well, you have a microphone. The microphone converts sound energy, mechanical energy moving through the air, into electric signals. Now you have electrical energy, but it's still analog. You could run it right into a speaker, mm-hmm. but you didn't really get to the digital part. If you convert the sound energy into analog energy, and then you run it into an encoder on a computer, you can encode that to be a digital music file. So now you've got a file with digital music on it. Now, how do you convert it back into music? You send it over a network. Then you send it to a computer and you decode it on the computer. And then you play it either via a speaker, like that's a simple idea, or by a peripheral, which actually creates analog music. An example of that would be like a player piano, mm-hmm. where you actually drive the player piano with a digital file, and you started with the piano on one side, you encoded the file, you send it to Tokyo, it comes out as analog music on the other side. There's no speaker. Now, the significance of digital music is I can create 1 million copies of that file, right? The greatest piano player in the world can play the piano in Steinway Hall, and then 10 million people can listen to what they played with almost perfect reproduction. There's no conservation of energy there. But, a lot of times people say, well, Bitcoin can't be digital energy because blah, blah, blah. It's not really pure electricity. And I think an interesting point here to make is a digital music file digital music if I eliminate all the computers and all of the speakers in the world? Right? What is it then? Right? It's right. Yeah. It's like just a file, right? If I obliterate the civilization, or if I take away the internet and the computers, the peripherals, and the speakers, then a digital music file is nothing. Now, what is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is an encoded. Think of it as an encoded file by a computer, right? I create an encoded file with a computer, which is a Bitcoin miner, and with energy, like real energy, electricity. If you give me electricity and run it through a SHA 256 miner, I can get a Bitcoin. Just like if you give me a singer and run them and a microphone and you run it through a computer, I give you a digital music file. But where it's different is this becomes a conservative file. I can now send that over a network. I can decode it on an exchange, in this case, a fiat currency exchange, and I can convert it via a service, a retail service or an energy service or any other type of brokerage service back into either a product or a service or property. And so I start with $1 million worth of electricity. I convert it into a Bitcoin. I got $1 million of Bitcoin. I can either get it by putting pure energy into the network, or I can get access to the Bitcoin by paying $1 million for it. Now I've got $1 million of Bitcoin. I can hold it forever. I can send it. I can break it into 10,000 parts. I can send it to 10,000 places. I can reconstruct it. And then if I run it back through an exchange, the exchange is really converting what is digital energy into political energy, which is fiat currency, the yen or the dollar or the euro. So I convert from Bitcoin to yen. I convert from yen into a product on a retail site, or I convert it into 10 people working full time, or I convert it into a building or whatever I can buy with the thing. And so in this particular case, a digital music file is just a way to more efficiently move music, and digital energy file or a Bitcoin is a more efficient way to move energy. If our civilization ends, neither file is useful, right? The Bitcoin is just a set of keys, and the digital music file is just an encrypted, set of stuff. But as long as the civilization continues, the metaphors are comparable. And of course, with digital music, you have digital music, digital maps. It works for all sorts of digital things. Digital communications, every one of them is an efficient way to transform analog to digital, speed everything up to the speed of light, move it friction-free, and drive efficiencies. The significance of Bitcoin is we never figured out how to create digital property and digital money and digital energy. And in its highest form, the idea of digital energy is profound.
It sounds like in these examples that you're laying out, the frequency, if you will, of our Bitcoin is increasing. Can you talk a little bit? It feels like we're going to need to tap into the Lightning Network here to keep up with the increased frequency of Bitcoin and not have it be a low or low frequency type thing. Can you talk about how the Lightning Network might relate to this as well?
Yeah. I mean, frequency is so important. Coming back to this idea, low frequency Bitcoin is property. If you want to buy a house, you're comfortable with the transaction. You shop for a year, the transaction closes in 8 weeks, right? There's a fee, a transaction fee of 6%, right? Shuffling property is a slow and sometimes transaction intensive process, but you don't do it often. You buy a house once every 4 years or once every decade or something.
Yep.
So when I replace the house with Bitcoin and I buy Bitcoin worth a house, I can move that on the main blockchain, and I can move it. It could take an hour. I mean, it takes an hour, and maybe the transaction fee is $5. And when I'm using that layer one of Bitcoin, it's really ideal for the property use case. But when you want to get to money commercial frequency, then you don't want to take an hour, and you don't want to pay $5 a transaction or $2 a transaction. And when you want to move to energy, the energy case where I might want to do 10,000 transactions an hour or a minute, right? Mm-hmm. Like I ask you, how many photons fall on your head when the light bulb is on when you're in the room? Think about the real rate of energy. You go to a party and I turn on the lights and I start playing music, and think about the flow of energy there, right? We're not talking about 10 transactions an hour. We're talking about 10,000 transactions a minute, or 10,000 a second even. So we need that high frequency. Whereas Bitcoin is an open protocol for moving digital property on the main chain, or moving the core Bitcoin. Lightning is an open protocol, permissionless open protocol to move digital energy, basically move Bitcoin at the speed of light with no friction. Bitcoin is an open protocol that's permissionless to move Bitcoin at a slower speed with a little bit of friction. The primary goal of the Bitcoin protocol is to protect that digital energy for 100 years, right? What we're trying to do is we're preserving it as property in some kind of stasis, like a vacuum pack stasis for 100 years. And the goal of the Bitcoin blockchain, or the Bitcoin protocol, is I want to store it forever and keep it secure with integrity. The goal of the Lightning protocol is to allow you to move it super fast at the speed of light with no friction. And I'm going to achieve that by decreasing the amount of energy in the network or in the channel while I'm doing that. So Lightning is giving you the ability to apply conservation of energy in cyberspace at light speed. Bitcoin is basically, Lightning wouldn't exist without Bitcoin, right? So in essence, you've got two layers. You could even think of it as like two different types of energy. I'm transferring the energy from one form into another form so that I can move it from oil to electricity so that I can transmit it through the air. Now, the number one problem we have is we got 8 billion people. We got 25 billion computers. We have 100 million companies. And we want to synchronize them in cyberspace, and we want to synchronize them every second. So how do I synchronize in real time all those devices? The universe synchronizes everybody, the entire universe, using forms of energy like light and electromagnetism and gravity and sound and friction, right? I mean, there's a lot of energies that are working in the universe, the strong forces, the weak forces, quantum energy, et cetera, to synchronize the universe. The problem in cyberspace is we need a way to synchronize energy across all these devices and people, and we can't do it at low speed. And that's where Lightning comes in. Lightning gives us a theoretical answer, a way for us to shuffle quanta of Bitcoin in real time in order to solve our problems.
So I think that creates a great foundation for the discussion that I know you'd like to get into a little bit, which is what exactly are these problems, and pragmatically, how can Bitcoin in particular potentially solve some of these problems and some of the applications and things that we interact with every day?
Yeah, I mean, the cyberspace is a mess today. What's the problem with cyberspace? Well, it's kind of the same problem we have with fiat currency. It's fiat corruption of information services in cyberspace. You could boil it down in a nutshell. Everybody has too much power. Everybody has too much power. Anyone can issue requests. Anyone can send any amount of packets. Anyone can send an email. Anyone can imitate anyone else. And there's no cost to spamming, scamming, malicious behavior, and creating chaos and confusion. No cost other than the compute resources.
Yeah. And
so
exacerbated by bots as well, right? It doesn't have to be limited to one person's capabilities.
If I want to blast you with 10,000 emails, I can do that for the cost of compute. If I want to spin up 10,000 Michael Saylor bots, I can do it. So we've got massive chaos and confusion in cyberspace. And it's been getting worse and worse because now I just write a Python script or some piece of code and I blast you with all sorts of packets, and you know, and I can hit you with 10 million requests a minute. And then when you kill my IP address, I just flip to a different one and I just hop around if I want to do a denial of service attack. The result is all the services in cyberspace are weak. You know, there's a phrase in chess, you know, Eric, you'll like this. Remember Magnus Carlsen's phrase, too weak, too slow.
Too slow, yeah, exactly.
Everything's too weak and too slow in cyberspace. Your feeds are full of garbage. The inboxes are full of garbage. My Instagram DMs are full of garbage and Russian bots that want to be my friend. My Twitter DMs have 50,000 garbagey bot, you know, things pitching me on yo-yo coin, you know, in the next airdrop. You can't read most stuff because it's just got too much junk in it. My company has three spam filters. I can't get through the spam filters. I got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of garbagey messages. When I post on Twitter, my people can comment. Twitter says 964 comments, and then I start reading them, and I find like 32 good ones, 950 garbagey bot ones. What's your Twitter feed look like?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I mean, Twitter does, it seems like they're doing the best they can to kind of algorithmically hide some of the clearest offenders, but it kills the user experience for anybody who's following your feed or wants to comment, and it makes it so that you can't even get to the good comments. And Twitter is orders of magnitude better than something like LinkedIn, which has just become unusable in my opinion.
Yeah, I've given up on LinkedIn too because I just got so much junk mail that I can't get through it all. Now, you know, the other day I looked at this, you know, I posted this tweet to announce spaces and I looked at the comments. There were 35 Michael Saylor bots commenting on Michael Saylor. And I thought, this is after 5 hours. And so people say, well, we'll just use AI to clean this up. But AI doesn't work. Like it's just not working. And the reason it's not working, I mean, among other reasons, there's no economic cost or civil liability to either action or malfeasance. And this is the problem in cyberspace. Now, in real space, right, the universe solves the problem with concepts like gravity and friction and conservation of energy, right? And if we take away friction and gravity, it's kind of hard to play a game of basketball, right?
Right.
Very difficult. So these existing services that we're using, they're breaking down and they're becoming toxic, not just to the users, they're becoming toxic to society. Like we can see how toxic this has become. People talk about all the problems on social media right now. It's a source of congressional hearings. And we can see it on Twitter, but you can also see it on YouTube. Let's take YouTube. You know, Eric, 4 weeks ago, I was getting 50 Michael Saylor YouTube scam live videos every week where Michael Saylor is offering to give away free Bitcoin. And there's 15,000 people listening. 15,000.
Yeah, it's out of control.
So here's an interesting question for you. How many do you think I'm getting this week?
I mean, it doesn't stop. I've sat next to you and seen you can't even get to the content that you want, your actual text, your actual emails, your actual messages. It's really unmanageable.
I went on YouTube the other day and there were 4 Michael Saylor scam videos in my feed offering to give me free Bitcoin. Now, you could think, well, maybe I'm ignoring this. People always send me messages. Why don't you report this? Well, the answer is I have 3 teams of people in Europe, you know, in the Far East and the US that are scanning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and reporting them every 15 minutes. And I got 1,550 of them posted last week. Every 7.5 minutes, someone posts on YouTube and they managed to get 15,000 live listeners. Now, are there really 15,000 people listening to Michael Saylor give them free Bitcoin? I doubt
Probably not, but there's no penalty for them doing this. And if they have one success, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah, they're very motivated, right? I mean, thinking of, because we keep taking them down every few hours, and they keep putting one up. But what they've got is they've got some Python script that just spins it up. So again, no cost to corruption. So how do we clean up cyberspace?
Bitcoin is the solution.
Yeah, yeah, Bitcoin is the solution. This is the really big idea, right? A lot of times people fixate on Bitcoin as what Bitcoin is an inflation hedge. Okay, that's your Bitcoin is digital property. Bitcoin is cryptocurrency. Well, that's Bitcoin is digital money or digital currency. But I just want to move the conversation forward to the next thing, which is Bitcoin is digital energy, and it's the solution to cleaning up cyberspace and also creating the next generation of killer applications. So, what are we going to do here? Well, the solution is to add a layer of digital energy over the existing internet, right? Because the existing internet is a very thick layer of digital information, digital music, digital communication, digital maps, digital video. This is digital information, but there's no digital energy over it. And Bitcoin is digital energy, and so that means Bitcoin introduces truth and consequence into cyberspace. And that's the big idea. We can introduce consequences and trust into cyberspace. And I think you want the best example. Let's come back to our Twitter, right? Here's my pet peeve, right? Here's the question. How many people on Twitter would like to get verified, Eric?
I would imagine most, except for those that are some version of anti-establishment.
Yeah, so, well, and let's say it this way. What if I could verify you, but you didn't have to dox yourself?
Yeah, that's the problem with it, right? There's no verification with anonymity.
And so what everybody wants is they want the privilege of verification, but they don't want to be doxxed. And how long does it take to get verified? Well, I can tell you, I tried to get verified on Instagram, and I had 1 million followers on Twitter. It took me like 6 weeks to get verified on Instagram. It's very painful. I think the black market rate for a blue check is like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. People will pay.
You didn't
buy
pay
one.
20 grand for a blue check, did you?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I pulled lots of strings, but I did not.
Okay, good.
But here's the big idea. What if Twitter introduced an orange check? And what you do is, what if anybody could basically download a Lightning wallet, put 100,000 Satoshis, which is like $47, and we can make it 50,000 Satoshis or 10,000 Satoshis. It could be any meaningful amount of money between $5 and $100. Let's say 100,000 sats. 100,000 sats in a Lightning wallet, you go to Twitter, and instead of sending it as a tip, you actually just post it as a security deposit, and Twitter, 15 seconds later, gives you an orange check. No docs. You don't have to, no credit card, no real name. All I'm doing is I'm just putting on deposit the equivalent of like $40 worth of Bitcoin.
You're posting an insurance policy that says you're going to behave in a civil manner.
Yeah, like putting your credit card behind a bar or a credit card behind the bar, or giving a credit card to check in a hotel room or to rent a car. But here I'm posting a security deposit. Now, Twitter just throws a switch, and instead of saying only your followers can post on your tweets, now you could set a little button where you say only people that are verified with orange checks can post on my tweets. Like a little orange check.
Yeah.
You want to DM me? You have to have an orange check. You want to join a Spaces? You have to have an orange check. If you want to like what I said, you got to have an orange check, right? You could simply clean the feed by saying orange check. You could say orange check and blue check too, but the truth is I'd rather have orange check because blue checks get hijacked sometimes. Okay, so now you basically put an orange check. You have to be cloaked in a cloak of orange energy in order to engage on the platform. Now, what happens next? Well, if you violate the rules of the platform, maybe by doxing me, or maybe by trying to fish maybe you try to attack me with a phishing attack, and you post a phishing URL underneath a post of mine, and I report it.
Mm-hmm.
What happens right now when you report a bad tweet on Twitter?
Nothing that I can tell. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like
maybe something, but it doesn't seem like much of anything.
there's no punishment. I mean, maybe the worst case is after you get reported 3,700 times, you lose your account. The other day I sat and I tried to read my DMs, and so I spent 15 minutes deleting junk messages from bots. It took me 15 minutes of my life. The consequences for them? Nothing. Consequences for me? 15 minutes lost. So the current situation is the human being has to pay in their life and time energy in order to try to do something good, and the malefactor doesn't suffer. But if we just flip this thing to orange check, then when you get reported, if you lose the account, you forfeit your security deposit, and there goes your 100,000 Satoshis.
Right, which an individual might be willing to do, but it certainly eliminates kind of a bot mentality where they might be doing this many millions of times. They're not going to lose, even if it was like $1 worth of sats, they're not going to lose $1 million worth of sats to be annoying.
Yeah, the consequence for an individual are, well, you have to post $20 once every year or once every decade in order to get full privileges and get verified. And look, if you get into my DMs and try to phishing attack me, or you threaten me in a hostile fashion, and I report you, then maybe you deserve to get maybe a small fine or 1,000 sats or 10,000 or 100,000 or whatever, but or lose your privileges, right? The platform already has the protocol. That is to say, Twitter and YouTube already have protocols for taking down malicious accounts. That's not the problem. The problem is there are no economic consequences when they get taken down. So if you post this orange check security deposit, now blocking, reporting, losing your account has economic consequences. It's the same as saying we're bringing civil liability into cyberspace.
Well, I think it solves another problem as well for the platforms. The platforms, I would imagine, would want to solve this problem if they could, but they don't have the resources as well. So by implementing this orange check system and empowering people with orange checks or well-intentioned users to report bad actors, you've empowered everybody on the platform to kind of police it and make it a better place as well.
Yeah, that gets us to a very interesting idea, which is this changes the business model of these social media applications, and it also introduces incentives for virtuous behavior. So at least I'd be a lot more energized to know that when I reported someone and they lost their account, there was a punishment. But also the platform could basically split the fine like 50-50 with the reporter. Or like if 37 people report a bad actor and the bad actor is attempting to phish or is a malicious actor, then maybe the 37 people split half and the other half goes to the platform. And what you're doing is you're monetizing malicious behavior and you're incentivizing virtuous behavior, and it's one thing to get paid to play a game, okay, I'm okay with it, play Axie Infinity and get paid. But wouldn't it be better to get paid to clean up Twitter or clean up YouTube and eliminate malicious imposters that wish to, destroy your life, right?
Yeah,
or
it also
steal your money.
It also turns the platforms, one of their largest cost centers, into a profit center, revenue generator.
Yeah. Like I think that it's the idea that I'm just going to throw infinite power at scanning all the feeds to try to get rid of the bots. It's not working.
No.
It's not working because I'm reading my Twitter and I'm seeing that 90% of the comments in my Twitter are bots that are at best just nuisances, and at worst they're hostile and malicious and offensive. It's not working in my DMs. It's not, and if we take this bigger idea, it's definitely not working on YouTube, right? It's not working because YouTube's full of this malicious behavior. It's not working on Facebook. It's not working on Instagram, where I can't read I can't read messages on Instagram. It's not working on Office 365 where I've got hundreds of thousands of spam emails. It's not working on LinkedIn. It's not working on the internet because Akamai's got an entire business protecting you from denial of service attacks. Right? It's not working right across cyberspace and the Tenders and the Bumbles and the like. It's just there's so much garbage being sent. It doesn't work for Telegram and WhatsApp and other messaging platforms because I have employees that are getting messaged by me. Actually, they're not me. They're fake me accounts that get spun up, right, on WhatsApp and all these other accounts. So you've got spoofing, you've got phishing, you've got spamming, you've got scamming. It's getting worse, right? Congress is afraid to allow teenagers to be on social media platforms, right? 65-year-old man can imitate an 18-year-old quarterback. I just, it's scary, and it's the troublesome part is what you've got in essence is just you've got products in cyberspace that just don't work very well, right?
Yeah, the other thing I love about this concept is because Bitcoin is open source, like you could imagine if this were provided by a specific company or some company that these platforms might have to pay who would benefit, they might be reluctant to use it or use the same one or do something proprietary. But since it's open source, it's truly like a public good that they can all embrace and all use, Bitcoin and sats to do this. And because like the transaction fees are, non-existent or de minimis, you can do it for small amounts of money, whereas like in the past, credit cards or something like that would have never worked for something like this, not to mention credit cards kill your anonymity and dox you.
Yeah, so I mean, credit cards, why can't we do this with credit cards and blue checks? Like, why can't we do this with that? And I think you put your finger on it. They're 20th century ideas. The 20th century banking system is too slow, too expensive, not scalable. The 20th century credit card system, it's slow, it's expensive, it's not scalable, it's elitist, it's fragile, it's insecure. How? Like it's going to take 60 days for final settlement on the credit card bill, right?
Yeah.
You can't do a credit card charge of 1 penny or 5 pennies. You certainly can't stream 19,000 credit card charges an hour, right? So it's too expensive. Billions of people don't even have a credit card. And so this is an example of dollars moving through the credit card network are almost like sound waves moving through the air. And what we want is laser light moving through vacuum, right? We want a more efficient way, either light or electricity, to move energy. We can't rely upon, acoustic waves to move energy around because it gets attenuated. And, credit cards, like lots of people can't get them. Lots of regimes can't clear them. There's clearly no way you're going to be able to plug 24 billion computers, 100 million companies, and 8 billion people to clear transactions every minute with each other on any credit card network.
Yeah, most of the 8 billion people on the planet don't have a credit card.
Yeah, and they're not getting verified with a blue check either, right? I mean,
right.
So how do we, and even if we did that, right, it's just, there's this idea, a bigger idea, which is instead of I pay $20 an hour once, that's a one transaction. What if I want to simply put an aura of trust with the fee with the people that reported it, right? Or use it to improve the quality of the service? You got to believe that 98% or 99% of the malicious behavior just disappears once you start to monetize it, because no one's so stupid as to want to lose $60,000. Yeah, I mean, and that's, it gets us almost to a discussion of opportunities here, right? What are the opportunities? Well, if the orange check is 100,000 Satoshis, how about a green check for 1 Bitcoin? What about a purple check for 10 Bitcoin? Like, you're like, well, I don't want to post 10 Bitcoin. Well, I think, would Goldman Sachs post 10 Bitcoin? Would Merrill Lynch? when I'm complaining to my IT department about these hackers on YouTube, I say, how come Citigroup isn't running these fake giveaways? I'm like, what do they do? Right? I
Right.
mean, like how do I get to the stage where Goldman Sachs or Citigroup, I mean, the US government, right? If you're a government or you're a bank, anybody that's asking me to send them money ought to be willing to post 100x that much money online, right? Or 1,000x that much money. So, your Twitter, you could have blue check, green check, orange check, purple check. Right now, they don't make money on blue checks. It's a cost center for them. Flip it around and turn it into a revenue center. If you did it like that, what happens when 100 million people post $50 each? Right? We're talking about serious amounts of money,
Yeah.
right? $5 billion worth of Bitcoin. What happens when 100,000 businesses post 50,000 each? You would end up with these entities having $10 billion worth of Bitcoin sitting in custody. Then you could start to monetize them with fees or fines. Maybe you give higher levels of service. If you want to actually host a 25,000 person spaces, maybe you got to actually post, a higher degree of collateral to do that. And pretty soon you're starting to look like a bank in cyberspace, and you could even syndicate that, right? Like maybe I take my Twitter orange check and I use it to log into to access other accounts. Right, this is an opportunity for Apple or Google, right? You got the login with Apple or login with Google option. Wouldn't it be great if you built it into your Safari browser or your Chrome browser, and then and now you're going to a website with the orange check, and the website gives you instant access instead of like challenging you to verify or validate.
Yeah, it provides a more anonymous way to do it. Although I think Apple is trying some, login anonymously kind of things where they'll vouch for you, but it does give you back your identity and privacy.
I think, you can imagine that you can create products and experiences that are 10 to 100 times better, right? I mean, the significance of this is it's not just safer, right? It's a safer experience. It's a more civil experience. It's a higher quality experience. It's a higher speed experience. It's a higher performance experience. It's a more delightful experience. What if I went to my feed and I saw 32 comments and they're all real people instead of 947 comments, of which 850 have been deprecated as potentially hostile? It's like if I had a hotel and anybody could come into the hotel without posting a credit card, and they could stay in any room and they could crap over everything and smash everything, right? And break the windows and then leave and get away with it. And then I'm trying to actually make a living as a hotel operator.
Yeah, because you had no security deposit.
There's no consequences. And so in the real world, you've got two layers of truth and consequence, right? You've got the laws of physics, which say that there's a limit to how many hotel rooms you can smash up, only one at a time.
Right.
And then you've got laws of civil liability, which says if you smash up the hotel room, you got to pay for it. In cyberspace, I can write a bot to smash up 10 billion hotel rooms an hour for free. And so clearly the opportunity is fix this stuff. Now, if you're a business person, you can either create, like if you're a big platform, right? You're an Apple or Google or Facebook or Amazon, you can improve your existing products and your services just by plugging Bitcoin and Lightning and this idea right into them, right? And WhatsApp could do it tomorrow. Instagram could do it, Signal, Telegram, etc. Office 365, they could all do it. Now, the other idea, right, is you can create products and services that are new that compete with these existing platforms, like Sphinx Chat, right? Something you can create a new product or a new form of chat that's just better than the existing one, and you can see if you can steal away their consumer customers. It's a bit harder, right? It's a bit riskier because you've got a better product and they've got more marketing and distribution, but you could do that. The third idea is you can create products and services that incorporate Bitcoin as digital energy and that have all the Lightning protocol built into it. And you go and you can knock on the door to sell them to Facebook and sell them to Amazon or sell them to Apple, right? So, I mean, how many people at Apple have the expertise to implement, this on a Lightning, implement their own Lightning channels and at scale necessary to provide this as part of the Apple experience? So you got to imagine there'll be a lot of demand for people that are experts in Bitcoin and experts in Lightning and able to implement digital energy right into, the entertainment, anything that's got people or concerned about security in cyberspace, which is thousands and thousands of applications, right?
And do you think that this takes hold? It takes one platform to kind of make the leap, show some success, and then it'll spread to others? Or what do you think is the best pragmatic course to have this take hold?
I think we got to flip one, right? Like if one does it, like if Twitter did it and they implemented the orange check and all of a sudden there were 100 million orange checks on Twitter, and then scam and spam and hostility and malicious behavior disappeared from Twitter, could you imagine the pressure that would come down on Facebook or Google or YouTube?
Yeah, and I think people would just flock to a better user experience as well, right?
Yeah, so I think, everybody kind of wants to add value, so someone breaks through. I think the same is true with the signaling app. Like, for example, I can't trust a message that comes in from a strange number on WhatsApp or on Telegram or on whatever. I can't go there because I don't know if they're real or they're hackers or they're phishing attacks. So if just one messaging platform flipped, then it becomes so much safer, right? I almost feel like it would be so good that you'd probably have politicians passing laws forcing people to implement the technology.
You could also wanted to.
Hey, Eric, I lost you. Can you say that again? Check, Eric. Well, 1 second. Hey, Eric, can you hear me?
Sorry, lost you there for a second. Technical problems. I was saying that you could also turn this into a revenue model where people could have a price that they pay for someone to actually get an important message through to them, whether it's email or DM or something.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So maybe it was me that failed, but yeah. So I hear your message now. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I think that when you start thinking about the spam applications, then you could imagine just charging people 10 Satoshis to send you an email or to send a direct message. Or you could even convert it into a model where if someone wants to message me, they have to pay 1,000 sats in order to do it. So I could increase the threshold of engagement and messaging at the microtransaction level. And the result of that would clean up the quality of the experience, and it would create a new revenue model for influencers or just for participants in general. I think the sky's the limit as to what happens.
It's an incredible concept. And you can start to envision kind of where you started the conversation with, kind of a cloak of orange and, light, let there be light being kind of, the first form of energy and the key to the universe. You can start to envision how that orange ray of light kind of, over the entire internet starts to protect people and bring about civility.
Yeah, one metaphor that I keep thinking about is once you understand that light is energy and sound is energy, then you think about a typical party. And if you want to have fun at the party, first you got to get into the party. Then maybe you post a credit card or you set up a tab at the party. The lights come up, the music starts playing, right? It's all fine, but the party ends when the light turns off and the music turns off, right? When the lights go down and the music is off, the energy has left the party, and you got to leave. And what we're talking about here is maybe lighting up cyberspace, right? Just
Yeah.
create the glow is coming from maybe the purple check tells you that it's safe. Yeah, heck, you could even set it up where the purple check says it's safe, or the purple check is streaming sats to the participants, right? And the orange checks are safe and they're vetted, and everybody just feels kind of secure.
Yeah, it's got amazing like parental control applications as well. And it could also just expedite someone's experience on the internet. You can travel from, if you have that orange check, you can travel from one place to another, which with less friction.
Yeah, I think so. So that's the idea,
That was great.
I want to check. Do we have any people that wanted to ask some questions? Let's see. Well, we got a few requests.
Go for it.
I'll bring a few people up on stage. Tomer, I see you.
Hi there.
You have a question?
Yeah, one very quick observation on what you're saying, and then one question for you to ponder and respond to. Is we're talking about using Bitcoin's proof of work as a filter against spam, which is ironic because that's what when Adam Back invented proof of work, he invented it as basically an email spam filter technology that would just be too much effort. And so just a cute irony of it is he was on the right track. He just had to first invent all the money in the world through proof of work, and then it would work, which is, I think is cute. But what I really wanted to ask is, I was thinking the other day about all these bots, and you've been talking about it, and these bots are so hostile. And I'm a big science fiction fan, and I know Isaac Asimov wrote all these novels about robots in the 50s and 60s, and he had these 3 laws of robotics. And the first one was that a robot may not injure a human being, or through an action allow a human being to come to harm. And we're just nowhere near that. Can you imagine if what's going on in cyberspace was taking place in physical space with robots that people were programming to just basically try to rob everybody that they can. This is kind of a really interesting solution that we're talking about, which is making it expensive to harm somebody, and so you quickly run out of capital if you're trying to do harm. And you were talking about robots, and so this was just this was kind of the thing on my mind. Is like, have you thought about it in this context at all? Do you see that we're going to move in a lot of this automation outside of the realm of cyberspace and into perhaps more dangerous reality with these robots? And is this a solution that applies there too?
Quick comments are, first, I do believe there's a delicious irony that proof of work eventually creates digital property, which becomes digital money, which becomes digital energy, which we can then use to eliminate spam in a flexible, high-speed, lightning fashion. I think that's ironic, but it totally makes sense, and it made me very happy to see that happen at the end of the day. And the second is, I believe, again, in the real world, you have physical liability. The laws of physics say you can be in one place at one time. You have criminal liability. You kill someone, you suffer, and maybe there's someone there. You have civil liability, right? And all of those things create a world which is a lot more rational than the cyberspace world. I mean, it's irrational if there's irrational political rules or political policies apply, but I don't think the low-hanging fruit is to fix the politics in the universe. I think the low-hanging fruit is to fix the maliciousness and the hostility in cyberspace, in the metaverse, if you will, and it all comes. The one thing that Bitcoin has put their finger on is that the source of malicious behavior, or is fiat, unlimited fiat. What is fiat? Power, right? Unlimited currency creates problems, but unlimited power in cyberspace creates problems. And so I think that that's where we're going to clean things up. And the way you remember in the Matrix where they say if you die in the Matrix, you're really dead, right? And that's the big idea in future science fiction. If you really want to bring the metaverse to life, or you want to bring cyberspace to life, there has to be consequences. People say Bitcoin brings time, it brings truth, it brings consequence to cyberspace. And the consequences come if you represent that you want me to send you a Bitcoin, you need to post 10 Bitcoin collateral, right? That you need to cloak yourself in some amount of energy, which is an order of magnitude greater than the damage you're going to do by me trusting you. And so if we force all of the actors in cyberspace to cloak themselves in energy, then the cost of maliciousness increases by orders and orders of magnitude, and your ability to force civility and safety, it's not a question of does it make it easier. It's a question of can you do it at all or not. And I think that this is a chance for us. And so that's what I would say to that. It's a chance for us to deliver safety and civility to cyberspace if we embrace these concepts.
Yeah, that's amazing. And this is one of the things that actually, to do this widespread, requires mass adoption of Bitcoin to clean up the internet. And so, interestingly, again, in maybe an ironic twist, it'll be the desire to actually solve the spam problem that leads to the mass adoption of Bitcoin, rather than the current the medium of exchange thing.
And I think the great idea here, or the great promise is, we can start it as a virus. We don't have to get all 1,000 platforms to adopt it simultaneously. All we have to do is get anybody to adopt it, even optionally. It doesn't even have to be mandatory. If you said tomorrow people on Twitter can get an orange check if they post 100,000 Satoshis, I would think you would get millions of people that would start to do it voluntarily. And then we'll start little orange virus that'll just spread, and it'll go from 1 million to 10 million to 100 million to 500 million to 1 billion to 2 billion to 3 billion, et cetera. And it'll ripple. And that's the idea. Launch a virus as a killer application on the Lightning Network. So I guess, Alex, you have a question next?
Yeah, I was wondering, how do we ensure that this sort of actual DeFi application of Bitcoin isn't co-opted by this other asset class of cryptocurrencies and you know, some venture capitalists who tend to be at the top of these social media platforms, you know, kind of squeezing their coins in the space and making, I don't know, like ETH or something else, the insurance policy on your verification?
Well, you know, Bitcoin's a layer one, and it moves slow, but it's secure and has integrity, and it's the dominant network. All the other cryptos are trying to be they're all relying on a token that's layer one. And so the fact that you decide to have a token is going to, almost by engineering design, slow you down by orders of magnitude versus Lightning. The thing that makes Lightning fast, that's a great pun. I just made that up. The thing that makes Lightning fast is that it doesn't rely upon its own token. It's relying upon the underlying Bitcoin blockchain. And so you can generate something that's orders of magnitude quicker by scaling the amount of energy that gets moved. So I think it's going to be a very competitive. Like there is a competitive world. I mean, Lightning is a permissionless open protocol, layer 2 protocol. But you could come up with Lightning, a sister of Lightning or a brother of Lightning that's competitive. You could also try to do this on layer 3 protocols like Square and PayPal. Square Cash App is like a way to move small amounts of Bitcoin around at the speed of light. You could try, but probably wouldn't work. Maybe Apple or Google might, or Microsoft might try to introduce their own proprietary protocol. If you remember the early days of networking, people are like jostling back and forth over protocols, and they're trying to get their protocol embedded, and there's lots of maneuvering. So I think that there'll be lots of maneuvering, but I rather think that the competitor to Lightning isn't so likely to be another cryptocurrency because they're all, relatively speaking, low performance and insecure. I mean, they're slow. They're slow compared to what you can do on a centralized network. And they're slow, I think, compared to what you can do on Lightning, and so Lightning is going to beat them on an open permissionless basis. But, the whole idea, the idea is Bitcoin is digital energy, right? Lightning is the open protocol for moving it around, but there are other protocols. And if Lightning failed tomorrow, there'd be Lightning 2.0, right? Or something. And I could imagine a world where where AWS and Azure, their websites are trading with each other, and they're hitting each other with 10 billion transactions a minute, and they're actually using Bitcoin to settle up the energy equilibrium and to solve the problem of denial of service attacks and the like. But then they're settling with each other on the Bitcoin blockchain themselves. I mean, exchanges settle with each other on Bitcoin blockchain, like OTC desks and big exchanges. But what's to keep AWS and Google Cloud and Azure from settling with each other on the underlying Bitcoin blockchain? Or they might come up with their own proprietary protocol. Will it be the Apple? Will it be the Google? I mean, those will all be proprietary layer 3s. I kind of feel like it's a very competitive market. It seems obvious to me that the clear choice is Lightning to be the open digital energy protocol, but there'll be competition, and it's not going to happen by itself. We're going to have to go out and implement Lightning, and we're going to have to convince Apple and Google and Microsoft to plug Lightning into whatever they do, and who knows if they won't wrap something else on top of it. I'm not so worried. I wouldn't worry about like the other cryptos co-opting this. I mean, the truth is the other cryptos have a life because they're offering technology, functionality, speed and performance, and they're offering the promise of some new functionality. Once we start to deliver that functionality using the digital energy of Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, I think that the venture capitalists will avalanche into the Lightning ecosystem because these are all real cool things that they want to finance and they can see a way to make money on. I just think they just need to understand. And then whatever, look if 100 different crypto networks also wanted to move some Bitcoin around on their network. I mean, it's money for everybody. So I just think there'll be hundreds or thousands of different applications, and there'll be dozens of networks, and they'll compete. But the obvious engineering structural choice would be a non-custodial, permissionless, scaled down network like Lightning that uses Bitcoin as the underlying token. Dplusplus, you're on stage. You have any questions or comments?
I do. First of all, thanks for having me. And I love this topic of Bitcoin being digital energy. So I'd love to ask you a question related to that. It got me thinking of a headline from a newspaper that was published 100 years ago. So almost down to the day, we are celebrating the 100-year anniversary of a newspaper article published by Henry Ford, who of course was the founder of Ford Motors, and he predicted Bitcoin The headline of the newspaper reads that Ford would replace gold with an energy currency and stop wars. And I got chills when I read this headline because he predicted Bitcoin 100 years ago. And not just Bitcoin, but the engine, the workhorse behind Bitcoin, which of course is proof of work. So I have a couple of questions. First of all, are you aware of Henry Ford's prediction? And two, how could he have predicted Bitcoin before the creation of proof of work and before we had an internet that could be used to transmit these electronic payments? How could he have predicted energy money? It just blows my mind.
So I think Henry Ford's the GOAT. I read the article that was written about energy money. I just thought it's brilliant. He was so brilliant. He was way ahead of his time. Tesla and Ford. Well, you got to figure, right? I mean, Tesla figured out electricity and everything else, and Ford. He did give us the automobile. I mean, the guy had some degree of capability, and the idea of energy money just it is a brilliant idea, and it's they just didn't have the technology to do it then, right? Just like Tesla predicted a lot of stuff, but he didn't have the technology to do it then. And Ford was he was kind of against World War One or not in favor of it, and he took a lot of heat for being against it, for having a politically incorrect view. But I think now, in hindsight, we look back and we think wars tend to do a lot of damage to the civilization. And so I'm a big fan of Ford, and I do think this is energy money. I think this is better energy money, but this was an idea I was thinking. I think he realized the problem with gold, and it needed to be replaced with something better than gold. I think obviously if we won't eliminate all strife in the real world with Bitcoin, just half. We can't solve all the problems, but I feel like we can solve half the problems, right? And that's what's interesting. If half of our monetary energy or half of the energy in the culture were to flow into digital property and cyberspace, then we start to not need to fight over physical property as much. So the reason to fight in the real world is less. It's never, and there are a lot of malicious behaviors, hostilities in the real world that are more difficult to pull off in the virtual world. So just like I'm a refugee and I'm carrying a bunch of money out of a country. If it's in Bitcoin, it's harder to take it from me than if I'm holding a bar of gold. So it's a simple example. If I do have it, so there's a lot of political and military malice in the real world that will go away, but not all. And on the other hand, there's a lot of joy and delight. You want to delight your customers. We can create delightful products by wrapping them in digital energy. And I think that oftentimes the Bitcoin narrative is a narrative of you need Bitcoin because this other thing is defective. Like the currency is defective, so you need Bitcoin, or politicians, and political movements are defective, so you need Bitcoin. You can't trust your whatever, you need Bitcoin. That's the running away from something. But the technology narrative is all about running towards something. Like, wouldn't you like digital music for everybody? Yeah. Wouldn't you like digital maps? Everybody loves technology. It's apolitical. So if I create a beautiful Twitter without spam, and I create a YouTube without scammers, and if I create an inbox without spam, and if everything is curated and beautiful and lovely, and you get it for free, and if I create a world where anybody can go online and they can engage and make money, right? Maybe by cleaning up things, right? Or by contributing, then that's a beautiful world. And I think that there's a lot of venture capitalists and there's a lot of technologists and a lot of companies. They want to chase after the beautiful. They don't want to fix the ugly. unless it's part of their product and they can fix it. So they're not going to really wage a war against the things they disagree with in society. But what they will do is they'll invest huge amounts of money to bring beautiful things into the world. And I think Bitcoin deserves both places. It should be thought of as a defensive strategy, an inflation hedge, and property, when you lose faith in the currency or the government or whatever. But it also should be thought of as digital energy to create these beautiful things in cyberspace where we bring truth and trust and form and substance and consequence into cyberspace. We make it real. And I think that if we do that, then we harness the imagination. We capture the imagination of tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people and companies and even politicians. And it's really something beautiful to pursue instead of something ugly we're running away from. And I think Ford saw both of these, right? Ford was a builder, he gave us the Model T, he gave us cars, and mobility was a massive revolution. It changed the society, changed the civilization for the better. And part of engineering is sometimes you see the inefficiencies of the world, and then you see the opportunities. But you want to move forward, he didn't have a lot of success in railing against the things he didn't like, but he did have a lot of success introducing the engineering breakthroughs that everybody liked. It doesn't matter what your politics are. It doesn't matter whether you agree with the war, you're against the war, whether you're pro-inflation or against inflation. Everybody loves an automobile if the choice was to walk on 2 feet. And I think that's the same is true with Bitcoin as digital energy. I think that we will get people to cross the aisle and from every country, every political walk of life. Everybody just wants things to work better. And to the extent that altcoins grab more support from venture capitalists, it's because they're focusing upon the technology message of better, faster, stronger, smarter, like new features. And I think that that Bitcoin is the basis of better, faster, stronger, smarter features too. And we just need to make sure that we get people talking about it, thinking about it, and doing it, because that's what allows us to move forward and reach our full potential. Any other questions from anybody on stage?
All right.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just wrap it up here to let everybody go to dinner or wherever they're off to, depending on your time zone.
That was great.
We
Thanks,
appreciate
Michael.
you zooming in with us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.